Guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft and the last in our Spirits of the Season series. Today we're talking about the super famous spirit, Krampus. And I'm not going to say Krampus the entire time because that's irritating. I'm just going to say Krampus because that's how I as an American say it. What? Krampus is not American. Krampus actually comes to us from Alpine folkloric tradition. And you might be wondering, like I was, what the Alpines were exactly. I know that they're the Alps, and I know that that's a mountain range in Europe, but I did not know what would be considered Alpine tradition. And that is actually 8 different countries that are all along the Alps or connected to or have the Alps. And that would be Monaco, France, Switzerland, Italy, Liechtenstein, Germany, Austria, and Slovenia. So that's where Krampus comes to us from, which is very interesting to me because I used to think it was just like mostly Bavarian or German in nature, but I didn't know it was connected to all those places. So, let's get into it. Krampus is very popular. It has probably, of all the spirits I have mentioned in this series, had a modern day resurgence of popularity the most and stands out the most because we see Krampus in media. There are horror movies featuring Krampus. I enjoy the Krampus horror movie. If you guys haven't seen that one already, it wasn't delightful, but it was good. So yeah, it's in the cultural zeitgeist currently. We're all kind of familiar with Krampus, or at least you've seen something in relation to Krampus. It's hard to miss out on. Krampus's origins are kind of mysterious. They're not really sure whether it's post-Christian or pre-Christian. It's believed that it might be a pre-Christian tradition. Especially the Krampus run, which is like a normal thing that's still currently happening today, where a bunch of young men get dressed up as Krampus and basically terrorize the town. Unfortunately, as is often the problem with researching folkloric style traditions, nobody wrote anything down. So they didn't write anything down about Krampus until about the 16th century. So it's hard to argue whether or not it's pre-Christian because we don't know. They didn't write it down. But it's believed to be pre-Christian and then getting incorporated with the St. Nicholas story because traditionally, in some places, Krampus is seen to travel along with St. Nicholas, and in other places he does his own thing. There's actually a special day for Krampus to show up and do his own thing. It's a Krampus Knot or a Krampus Night. And apologies for all of the mispronunciations that are going to come at you and have already hit you in the face because they're going to keep happening. So at any rate, on the 5th of December, right before the Feast of St. Nicholas, which is December 6th, Krampus would show up and punish all the badly behaved children with rods of birch. So basically he would get like stems of birch and whip the crap out of kids. And if you were really naughty, he would scoop you up and stick you in his backpack. And if you were not familiar with Krampus, I should have probably started with this. Krampus is a sort of goat man, but like a wild hairy man, like all the way top to bottom, covered in fur. It's usually black or brown fur. He has the horns of a goat on his head and a very long, very red tongue that like lolls out of his mouth. He usually is seen either carrying a sack or a like woven basket strapped to his back, in addition to chains, which he uses to like set the mood and the ambiance by shaking them menacingly. They don't actually come into play. Some people think that he uses them to like trap up the children, but he uses his little basket on his back to keep children safe, so he can drag them to hell. That seems to be the common belief, is that he drags them down to hell. Sometimes it's to eat. Sometimes it's just to kill. But most people believe that he takes the kids to hell in that little basket. And then, before they go, they get whipped with little birch sticks. And that's unpleasant. There's a little bit of debate over where the word Krampus comes from. It might come from the Bavarian word Krampen, meaning dead or rotten, or from the German Kramp or Krampen, meaning claw. Both fit. Either way, it's very standard that it is a half goat, half demon type man-shaped monster. Basically meant to terrorize your children into being good. So if they are good on the Feast of St. Nicholas Day, they will get a present. If they are awful, Krampus will take them away to hell. And like I said, Krampus does have a very current popular standing as far as random holiday spirits go. But at one point in 1932 in Austria, it was outlawed. The Dollfuss regime was like, no, we don't want that because they're fascist and they don't like having fun. So they tried to like outlaw Krampus in 1932. Clearly, Krampus survived longer than that regime did. So here we go. In the 1950s, the government tried to be like, Krampus is bad, and they handed out pamphlets to sort of discourage parents from using the Krampus myth to destroy the mental faculties of their children. Which, I guess, it's kind of nice to know that parents have been doing that since the dawn of time. So they were trying to be like, don't tell your kids scary stories. It's going to give them complexes. I feel like somebody in the branches of government was like, this really bothered me as a child, so I need to get rid of it. That didn't work either because it came back. They suppressed it a little bit, but Krampus came back. You cannot keep Krampus down. He continues to return. On a sadder, more unfortunate, disappointing note, there is a lot of evidence to sort of link the appearance of Krampus to anti-Semitic depictions of the Jewish people, particularly in the fact that Krampus is featured with a hooked nose, a beard, and has like demonic horn features and stuff like that. That's really common in anti-Semitic art. Of that time period and even before. So there's a lot to say that there might be a connection to anti-Semitism and Krampus. Although the tradition seems to have outlived or outgrown that, I don't want to like downplay that as a thing in relation to Krampus. It is just an unfortunate side effect. A lot of things in folklore can be found in some sort of negative rhetoric. There's a lot of things that have that sort of connection. So I didn't want to downplay that or pass over it and pretend like it wasn't there. It is unfortunately present in that particular legend. So just be aware of it. Like I said, it doesn't survive as that sort of tradition today, but it does have that history. So it was very traditional for men to dress up as Krampus on Krampusnacht, so the December 5th, and go around to the houses and sort of terrorize the kids a little bit to sort of keep them scared straight so that they would be well behaved into the Feast of St. Nicholas and then into Christmas as well. That tradition still carries on today. If you have been on TikTok in any capacity, you have definitely seen people scare their children by dressing up as Krampus. So that tradition continues. And like I said, there are still Krampus runs where people get all dressed up, like a bunch of people get dressed up as Krampus and just cause havoc through the town. They run around, they harass people, and sometimes occasionally they really hurt people. So there's a lot of like pushback on these Krampus runs because, you know, sometimes they break bones. That happened back in 2013 where 8 people got injured and like 60 other people were treated for small minor injuries, but those 8 people had like severely broken bones. So, you know, like it gets a little bit out of control. People get a little bit carried away. They're definitely imbibing during this time period. There is some relation from with Krampus to the Perchtenlauf, which would also be the Perchten. So if you remember my episode on Frau Perchte, she was like accompanied by these demonic figures who resemble Krampus, known as the Perchten. So that comes up again. Although the Perchten were usually depicted as having long necks, but having the same like goat features and like hairy devil body type thing. And I know this is going to come as a surprise to you guys, but I don't actually have that much to say about Krampus. There's a couple of different like regional variations, a little bit of traditional differences in how the whole Krampusnacht is observed. There's some different type names for different versions of Krampus, but there's nothing like really outstanding that is like worth remarking from what I can see. That's just my opinion. Your experiences may vary, but there's not a lot like folklorically about Krampus to talk about because it's a still currently surviving tradition that's being observed in the capacity that I've already shared. And it sort of resembles the previous capacity in which it was celebrated, so there's not a major difference in that either. Also, unlike some of the other ones I've talked about, particularly the Mari Lwyd, the Krampus story is very straightforward. There's not a lot of mystery to the story. Although there's some debate about how long the tradition has been around, the story itself is very consistent and very straightforward. So there's not a lot to go into about Krampus. I thought that this was going to be one of the longer episodes, and I was going to have all this really interesting information for you guys, but it's actually a shorter episode. And I hope that it's still just as interesting. But there wasn't a lot to talk about, which was really surprising to me. It is like fun to note that Krampus, like I said, has survived into modern day folklore. It showed up in its own movie. It's been in American Dad a couple of times, I think. It has been in the Venture Brothers. It's shown up in video games. It shows up in songs. So Krampus has really taken off, and I think more people are starting to pick up on it as sort of the anti-Santa of the season. It's sort of migrated over here to North America, and it becomes something that a lot of people talk about even over here. So that's pretty cool. And I like the idea that the tradition continues to survive and expand in a way that's like really organic. But that's all I have to say about Krampus today, you guys. And that is the end of the Spirits of the Season. Like I always say, if you have a story you want me to tell in Storycraft, we're going to go back to our regularly scheduled programming after this one. And I am definitely still and always taking requests for this series. So leave that in the comments below. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate your faces, and I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting. Bye.